It was the coldest day of winter, the kind of morning when the wind cuts straight through your clothes. Inside the classroom, the heater clanked, struggling to keep up. But outside, in that bitter cold, a 12-year-old boy stood shivering. Not because he was lost, not because he was late, but because his teacher had sent him there as punishment. The classroom smelled faintly of chalk and old books, a familiar mixture that clung to the peeling posters taped along the walls. The radiator hissed in protest against the biting January air. Students huddled in their seats, zipped into sweaters and jackets, even though the rules said coats should be left at the door. At the front of the room stood Ms. Henderson, a teacher in her mid-40s with wire-rimmed glasses and a reputation for discipline. She wasn't the type to smile often, and she believed in teaching lessons that went beyond the curriculum. Her motto was simple: respect first, everything else second. That morning, Ethan, a restless 12-year-old with an untamed grin, tested her patience. He whispered jokes to his friend, giggled at the wrong times, and tapped his pencil against the desk in a rhythm that grated on her nerves. She warned him once, then again, but he didn't stop. Finally, Ms. Henderson's sharp voice cut through the classroom. "Ethan, enough! Go stand outside until you're ready to behave." The room fell silent. Ethan shifted uncomfortably in his chair, glancing toward the frosted window. The temperature outside had sunk into the teens. Still, he zipped up his thin hoodie, shot his classmates a smirk, and walked toward the door. At first, he thought it would just be a few minutes. He leaned against the wall, hugging himself for warmth. But when Ms. Henderson opened the door again, she motioned him farther. Not into the hallway, but into the open-air courtyard. The cold hit him like a wall. His breath turned white. His fingers stiffened almost instantly. He shoved his hands deep into his hoodie pocket, bouncing on his toes to stay warm. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. He knocked timidly on the door once, but it remained closed. Inside, the lesson went on. By the time Ms. Henderson finally brought Ethan back in, his lips were tinged blue. He slumped into his desk, shivering so hard his pencil shook in his hand. Some students exchanged nervous glances, but no one said a word. That night, Ethan developed a fever. By morning, his cough was heavy, his chest tight. His parents rushed him to urgent care, where doctors diagnosed pneumonia. He spent several nights in the hospital, hooked up to IVs and monitors. News spread quickly. Parents whispered in carpool lines. Students told their families what they had seen. Within a week, local TV crews were camped outside the school, microphones ready. Student hospitalized after teacher leaves him outside as punishment. The community divided almost instantly. At the next school board meeting, voices clashed in anger. Some defended Ms. Henderson, describing her as strict but fair, a teacher who had spent decades demanding respect in a world where, they argued, children had too little discipline. Others were outraged. "This isn't discipline," one parent shouted. "This is child abuse." Ethan's parents filed a complaint with the district, accusing Ms. Henderson of negligence, possibly even criminal endangerment. They wanted accountability. They wanted to know, what kind of educator forces a child into the freezing cold as punishment? Police soon launched an investigation. Was this a simple mistake of judgment, or had Ms. Henderson crossed into criminal territory? Could she have reasonably foreseen that sending a child outside in sub-zero temperatures might cause serious harm? As the case moved forward, more voices joined the debate. Students admitted that Ms. Henderson often made disruptive kids stand in the hallway, but rarely outside. A few said Ethan had been warned several times before the punishment. One recalled Ethan laughing as he walked out, as if daring her to follow through. But others described how pale and weak he looked when he returned to class, how his teeth wouldn't stop chattering. The courtroom battle was tense. Ethan's parents testified about their son's illness. The nights they sat beside his hospital bed, terrified. Doctors explained how exposure to cold can suppress the immune system in children, making illness more likely and more dangerous. Ms. Henderson's defense argued that she had no intent to harm. She had only wanted to enforce discipline, to teach respect. "I thought a few minutes outside would calm him down," she told the jury, her voice cracking. "I didn't think it would go this far." Legal experts debated the case on talk shows and in editorials. Negligence, they said, required proof that she created a foreseeable risk of harm and ignored it. Was the risk of pneumonia foreseeable to an ordinary person in her position? Or was it an unfortunate accident? A punishment that spiraled into something no one intended? The trial became a referendum on discipline itself. How far can a teacher go in enforcing order? At what point does punishment cross the line into cruelty, or even crime? The jury's deliberation stretched late into the night. On one side was a woman who had dedicated her life to education, insisting she had meant no harm. On the other, a child whose health had been endangered by her decision. The community waited divided. Parents asked themselves whether their own children were safe in her classroom. Teachers worried that if Ms. Henderson was convicted, every disciplinary decision they made could someday be turned into a criminal case. When the jury filed back in, silence fell across the courtroom. The verdict was about more than one teacher and one boy. It was about the boundary between discipline and danger, authority and abuse. Was Ms. Henderson guilty of criminal negligence? Or was she simply a strict teacher whose judgment went terribly wrong? Guilty or not? For more chilling true crime cases, subscribe to our channel. Guilty or Not.